Logan, you want to start with D&I tonight?
Yeah, so first off, we have another Unlearning series from the DEI office. This one's titled Unlearning Ableism. That's going to be tomorrow from 9 to 11:30, and to register, you can just visit any of the office's social media at Diversity OU. And then also tomorrow, the OU Center for Social Justice is having a discussion on race and anti-racism. That's from 12 to 2. And for registration, you can visit csj.ou.edu. And also, I wanted to mention that the OU Food Pantry is launching their new branch campus closet. The address is in the flyer there. If you all have any like old clothes lying around, anything you want to donate, I would highly encourage you guys to donate there.
Awesome. Okay, we're going to skip breakout rooms. We'll come back to that. Dues. The deadline for discounted dues got extended. If you guys have not paid them yet, we can now pay until October 30th, and it's still at the discounted $60 rate. If you want the t-shirt with it, $75. And then after that date, dues will not be accepted again until the spring semester. So make sure you pay before then if you want to be a dues paying member. And our headshot fundraiser that was scheduled for tomorrow is canceled due to campus being closed again tomorrow. We are working actively to try and reschedule for another date, and we'll keep you all updated. And then I'm going to do this, and we will just kind of chat since it is just all of us tonight. But exec board, and I think Caitlin as well, we've been attending the international conference all day and starting yesterday as well, and we thought we'd just talk about what we've been able to attend and what we've learned so far through 2 days of international conference. Does anybody want to share what they've learned first?
I learned a lot about line dancing last night. I got my roommates in on it. Honestly, I didn't think much of it, but that was a blast. So I really enjoyed that, Rachel.
Yes. I'm glad the line dancing was a hit. It seemed like it was a good bopping time. Everyone on national committee was on like a Zoom call that was doing it. And it seemed like a bopping time.
Yeah, Katie was killing it.
Oh my gosh, Katie and she has like an iridescent cowboy hat. Her birthday party theme this year was Space Cowboy. So Katie is our VP of Digital Comms for National Committee, if you didn't know. She's from Texas. She was our district ambassador last year. Yes. But she's awesome. So it's been a good time though. I am really glad with the things like the champions events and the fact that we still have opportunities to network and still talk to other people, because that was something that I was really worried about coming into Icon, was that we weren't going to have that, or that it wouldn't be as beneficial. But I got to meet some really awesome people yesterday, specifically at champions too. That was all really awesome and really cool, getting to, because a lot of times you would just pop into a table and you didn't really know the person that you were talking to. And for me, it was really cool. I met a guy who, he worked at the Texas Rangers, and then we were talking, and I found out that he used to do professional theater in my hometown, which was really cool, because I am really involved in that. So that was really cool that we had that connection, even though now he teaches at Syracuse. So world is small.
Yeah, Rachel sent me his name. You may know him, Pritch. Brad Horn.
The name's familiar, but I can't place him.
Yeah. I actually got to talk with Brian Price again. He was our speaker. He was the first speaker of the year. So I got to talk with him and Roland King.
Yeah.
Both of them were able to give me a lot of advice, talk about grad school a lot, and kind of challenges associated with that, and how to persevere through that, and that how it's much better on the other side once you get through it, and it really looks good to future employers. And then today in the PRSSA keynote speaker, really interesting, and she talked about not compromising your own ethics for your bosses or for the company you're working for, and you have to have a solid line that said, if something crosses it, I'm out, even if that's compromising salary, job security. You have to have that ethical line that you have set for yourself, and if something the company asks you to do, or something your bosses do, or the company itself does, or partners do, crosses that, say, no, I'm gonna go take my talents elsewhere, and with somebody who aligns with my values. So I thought that was really interesting, and she put it in a really good way.
I thought it was so fun. Like, Rachel, the platform is so cool. So when we were doing the champions for PRSSA, I didn't really know what to expect. So I was like talking to my mom on the phone because I was like looking, and like someone just popped up. I was like, Mom, I gotta go. Someone just popped up on my screen. I was like, ah. But it was really cool. I met this guy. His name is Errol.
He's so
Errol
fun. Errol
Cockfield.
Cockfield.
Yeah.
Yes. He was so cool. He was telling us like his advice on like agency life and like what that's like. So it's really cool hearing his perspective on everything. And then
Oh, go ahead. I was just
oh,
gonna
I'm
say,
sorry, no.
he was one of the speakers at Leadership Assembly, I believe, last spring. So it was awesome to like get to like hear from him again too. I think it was
Had
Leadership.
a board colleague in my last year on the PRSA board. Nice guy.
He was really cool. And then Heidi, oh goodness, I forget her last name. It's Heidi H. She's from Arkansas. Yes. She was really cool too. She was also on the call with him.
Nice.
She's one of our national advisors or something like that. I don't remember her exact position, but she's always so sweet, and she's so like complimentary of PRSSA students. And every time we get to talk to her, she's like, I just think it's so cool, like what students are getting to do right now, and how much like leadership I see like in chapters, which is all really awesome and cool. So I love like to see that. She's awesome.
I think she was my replacement on the board for the Southwest District.
Oh. Oh, it's so funny. Turns out her mom and I are like from the same town almost. Like her mom is from North Richland Hills and I'm from Keller, which is like 10 minutes apart, or like 5 minutes. So that was kind of funny.
It's probably a different Heidi I'm thinking of. Sorry.
Oh, no problem.
Caitlin, what sessions did you go to?
So I am currently in Minnesota and I am sick, and I'm stuck here because my sister had to get tested for COVID. So I was just supposed to be here for the weekend, so I've been trying to hop on when I can just because I haven't been feeling well. But I did get to go to Shanita Akintande's presentation, and it was all about the sizzle and kind of like branding and stuff, and I thought that was really, really fun. I really enjoyed her presentation, and I connected with her on LinkedIn and I messaged her and everything, so that was really fun. And then I'm terrible with names, so I'm like looking through my LinkedIn seeing who I connected with. Renelle Dotson, her presentation was today, and they just talked about some like examples of like issues that they've had with different clients and like how to deal with them. And I thought that one was really interesting too, because they had some really crazy stories, and I was like, wow, that has to be so hard to deal with people like that. So yeah, I've been enjoying it though. It's been really nice.
Awesome. Shelby, did you ever go to Icon when you were a student?
I did. I went to, it was called something different. It was just the international conference. But I went to a couple, I think Washington, D.C. for sure. and another city now that I can't remember. But yes, I went to conference a couple times, and it was always a really good and fulfilling experience. So I'm glad to hear that it's still that way.
Yeah, I've been impressed with the virtual format. I think it's been really engaging, and it'll be really nice to go back and watch all the recorded ones since we have them for 30 days.
And what I really love is like I've gotten to meet a lot of like international students and people like that, international professionals and things too, that were like, usually I wouldn't be able to come to Icon because of like travel costs, and like it is really far, and like you have to account for like extra travel when you're like taking off school and stuff. But a lot of them have gotten to go, which is really exciting. And then we even talked about maybe doing some type of like, someone that I met through Icon was like, hey, I have an idea to do something with like exploring cultures, like little like webinars and like Zoom like calls where you can like share culture and like talk about culture. So that was like really exciting that like that was someone who suggested that like I wouldn't have necessarily gotten to meet if they weren't able to come to Icon, but they could this year because it was virtual and at the lower price.
Mhm.
Yeah, I like the virtual format. I think if there's a way to do hybrid, I mean, I was talking with Philip Tate. He was actually one of my mentors last semester. I got to know him. I reconnected with him in the Champions chat, and we were talking about how, actually I was talking about this with Brian Price as well, how a lot of things are probably going to take a hybrid format moving forward. I think it'd be cool if Icon could also take some sort of a hybrid format as well. I think it'd open the door for a lot more students to be able to go, if that hybrid option was at a lower price like it is this year.
Yeah, and that is something that Kix, who was the conference coordinator, and I were talking about actually on a podcast for PRSSA that's coming out. But we were talking about how the virtual like aspect like is probably not going away, and like so many of the things that like agencies and like individuals and like companies have like learned during COVID, we're like, we totally could have been utilizing this before COVID. It just like COVID happened, and that's what made us think to start doing it. So yeah, we're thinking that it's probably not going to go away. But it will be nice when we can all like gather together again and have like in-person interaction too, though.
Yeah. How do you access the videos for the 30 days? How do you access those?
I think that they're going to send an email out after that like explains it. I'm not 100% sure, but I can definitely find out.
Okay, yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Jada and Lauren, what did you guys do with your ice day today?
I saw that a lot of branches have actually fallen on my truck, so I tried moving them and just trying to stay warm. I got this little heater in my RV, and it helps a little bit, but not much.
It's never fun clearing branches. I used to live in Miami, and after the hurricanes would come through, that's the first thing we'd have to go out and do is clear all the palm fronds and all the tree branches that fell.
Dang.
I was like out today though, and it was like worse than, I mean, I'm like from a really like lucky area in Houston that during Harvey we weren't hit as bad, but I was like, this is like worse than like hurricanes like I've seen, as far as like trees and falling and things like that.
Well, it's because the trees still have their leaves on them. I mean, this is really early for an ice storm.
Lauren,
I don't.
go ahead, Natalie.
Oh, sorry. I was just say I don't. I'm not for sure if Lauren can hear us or not. Just because she said her connection was bad. So if she doesn't respond, that's possibly why. She's not ignoring you. just so you know.
Okay, sounds good.
I'm talking listening to.
I don't think any of that came through for us.
You're breaking up, man.
Yeah, that's okay though. Well, Shelby, we will turn it over to you and your presentation. We are excited to hear from you.
Awesome. So it sounds like you guys have been listening to a lot of really engaging, really exciting speakers. So I'll try to keep it going. I'll try to keep the engagement high. And hopefully what I share with you tonight is something that you can benefit from. So before I jump into that, I'll just quickly introduce myself. So if you haven't guessed already, I am an OU and Gaylord alum. So I graduated in 2014 from Gaylord, and I did focus in public relations. I'm getting this is a total blast from the past for me because I was PRSSA. I was on, the board. I was president my senior year. I worked at Lindsay and Asp. And so I like to think that we have a lot of shared experiences that we can talk about tonight. I also so this is new for me this year. I recently graduated. Of course, I didn't get to walk across the stage, but I graduated with my master's in digital communications analytics from University of North Texas, which was, I've always had, getting a master's, I've had it on my list as a goal that I wanted to accomplish. And so it worked out. My husband and I, we got our master's degrees at the same time. And so it was a wild ride, but it was very well worth it. And then flashing back a bit, so of course I did that while working full time, but when I graduated from OU in 2014, I came to work for Phillips 66, which is an energy company that's headquartered here in Houston. And I started my career with them 6 years ago and haven't looked back, and I've been here ever since. So of course, in 6 years, I've had a lot of different roles. So I've had, digital and social media roles. Of course, that was my first role in the company. But I've transitioned into some external media relations. And now, I've done some like executive support as well. So speech writing, presentation crafting, kind of like a publicist for our executives. And then right now, where I've settled in for the past couple of years has been in internal communications and employee engagement. So I'm in our marketing department right now, which has about 800 folks who sit across the globe, but our major offices are in Houston, London, and Hamburg, Germany. So quite a few folks to engage with and to communicate with and keep us all marching to the beat of the same drummer. So I'm really loving what I'm doing. There are still things on my list that I want to do within my company, but that's kind of been my experience so far. So tonight with you, I thought I would share a couple of things. So, I'm kind of calling this like 7 tips to be an A+ intern or new hire, because there are things that I wish that people would have told me. And I'm sure that some of these things are things that you've heard. But my goal tonight is that I give you maybe a different perspective on them, or maybe I tell you something you haven't heard before. I have 2 disclaimers for you. The first is that tonight I'm not a spokesperson for Phillips 66. Everything that I say, they're my ideas, they're my thoughts. That's tonight. And then number 2 is that my whole career has been in corporate PR. And so I think maybe it's a perspective that you haven't heard before. And I'm sure you've heard from people who also work in agency or nonprofit. And so this is just a bit of a slice of what I've learned and kind of a slice of life in corporate that you can get a feel for. So that being said, with my 2 big disclaimers, my number one tip to be really just an A+ intern or new hire, those 2 things go hand in hand. Number 1, and I think Pritch will like this one, is to stay curious. So a very wise mentor of mine that I had during my time in Gaylord and Lindsay and Asp and PRSSA, I like to quote him I quote this all the time, but really I didn't believe him at the time. Don't tell him I said that, not like he's listening. I didn't believe him at the time, but your degree is really just a license to learn. He was totally right. Don't tell him that either. I don't want him to get a big head. But really, if I look at my day, on any given day, I'd say that about 10% of the skills that I use are what I learned in a classroom, and the other 90% are actually what I've learned on the job. So, you think about it, and here are some examples of what I mean by that. And this is not to scare you, but these are just some examples to help you conceptualize what that means. 90%, I haven't even learned what I need for my job. Really, you think about it, when you're in an office environment, most of the time I'm joining projects in mid-flight. So I'm not putting the plan together. It's not my strategy. It's not my words on a page. It's not my plan, but I've been tapped to help execute. So I've got to quickly get up to speed. I've got to talk to the right people. I've got to know the right people to go to. And I have to help push that project over the finish line. So really that was a key difference for me that I had to catch on pretty quick when I jumped into the full-time workforce. Sometimes you're also given some very specific goals from leadership that maybe don't align with what you'd think the PR goals are. But if your boss gives you a goal to achieve it, I'm going to say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, let's get it done. So there are times when I can say, hang on, maybe we can reevaluate this. But sometimes you're given some pretty specific primary or secondary goals that you want to accomplish for your client or for your company. And then there are, of course, the fun things about my job that I love, but that aren't PR at all. So like, you know, not all of it is, you know, campaign planning to raise awareness and to garner engagement. I ran a campaign to raise money, to raise, you know, fundraising money for a nonprofit that we support. And I hadn't done that in college. That was something that I had to learn how to do. I had to learn some new lingo, some new techniques. And one of the main things that I learned too, that I didn't learn in a classroom, but I learned on the job, was how to translate a business strategy into language that people actually understand. So, you know, that took a little bit of learning the business finesse, learning building and business acumen, things like that. But really your degree is just a license to learn. And so definitely stay curious, ask all the questions. You know, that's just my number one tip because it helps me a lot. Number two to being curious is also to be humble. So as, you know, a junior or senior in college, most of the time when you're getting internships or your first full-time job, you were the president of this, you were the lead of that, the campaign, you know, manager of something else. And let's just face it, OU and Gaylord, it makes you awesome. So when you graduate, obviously you're awesome. But once you enter the workforce, be it an agency or especially a corporation, you all of a sudden become this tiny little fish in a really big pond. And for me, that was a huge adjustment. You know, I went from being the president and the lead of things to all of a sudden being, you know, the lowest person on the totem pole. And so, while confidence is really important in a lot of your ideas, I've seen some other new hires stumble. Maybe I stumbled a couple of times myself, but just having some respect for people who know the client, who know the business, who know the company, because a lot of times they might have made some mistakes in the past that they can help you avoid. And so definitely understanding that you do have a lot to learn, you have a lot of value in offering your ideas, but staying humble is the best way to stay balanced between being able to offer your ideas and also take feedback, which part of being humble is being able to take feedback graciously. I need to take my own advice because I don't know anyone who likes getting some harsh feedback. But I will say that early in my career, I got some really good feedback where I had people point out some of my blind spots. And had they not done that, had I not listened, I would have been in a different place today, I think I would say. So listening to feedback, taking it graciously, not making excuses. I've had to give some tough feedback to some new hires in our company before. And, you know, sometimes people, I know your first instinct is to get defensive, but sometimes to have an excuse locked and loaded, that's not a good color. So take feedback graciously and process it. Maybe, you know what, maybe you disagree with it and that's okay, but process it because it's someone's perspective and they are trying to help you. People wouldn't give you feedback if they weren't trying to help. They would just let you struggle or let you maintain down your path if they knew you were headed for a dead end. So feedback is a gift, but I know it's difficult to take, but try and take it and be humble. Number 3, and this is going to feel like a direct, it's not congruent with being humble, but number 3 is believe in your ideas. Just because you're new, whether you're an intern or a new hire, it doesn't mean that your ideas aren't valid and that they aren't really, really good. Those of us who have, even just a couple of years with experience, we don't want to admit this, but we can get stuck in our ways. And so to hear a fresh perspective from someone like you who's coming in and who has a ton of energy and you've got new ideas, you've got a new perspective to offer, it can really break us out of our traditional ways of thinking. You can end some of our loops that we tend to get in because what we've been doing is working. So sometimes you can really come in, you can shake us out of that rut and you can help elevate us. So, bring those ideas. It will spark other ideas. And then I would say always bring an idea and never come empty-handed. So something I'll share an experience, something that you all can learn from. I had worked with a new hire before where, she has a couple projects that are assigned to her. And it happened a couple of times where she would come to me and say, hey, how should I handle this? Or how should I get started? I have 0 ideas. And that always made me pause. It was a red flag. And I would ask, I said, you have no ideas? You have 0 ideas. And she said, yeah, I have 0 ideas. So my feedback to her was, I don't care if your idea is super over budget, if your idea is half baked, if it is, so crazy that, someone's going to slam the door in your face. I don't care. Have an idea or a couple of ideas. It'll help us get started. It'll show me that you have some initiative, that you've thought about it. And then let me help you make those ideas feasible, or let me help you talk through those. But don't have 0 ideas. No one has 0 ideas. So, believe in your ideas and share them and bring them to the table. And then of course the pitfall of that it would be a disservice if I didn't warn you. When you get into a larger company, especially like mine, part of being humble and believing in your ideas is also knowing that your ideas aren't your property. So sometimes, I would give an idea or, pitch something and everyone would really like it. They would start running with it. And where I thought it was going to go in this direction, my idea is taken and it takes a curveball and it goes in this direction. And that's fine because it got us started. It got us, moving in the right direction. That idea, just because I brought it to the table doesn't mean that I now own that whole idea and that whole project. So, you're going to be in very collaborative roles and you're definitely going to see your ideas grow and morph and change as it makes the rounds and, moves up the chain. And so really just remembering that it's all about the end result and not who came up with the idea. Because that got me into trouble early in my career too. I would get a little upset when my ideas were taken and tossed around a bit. So number 4, and this one might seem a little obvious, but I don't know if I heard it as often when I was in school. But number 4 is to find a mentor. And I'm going to add on to that and say, find a mentor and a buddy. So there will be several very influential people in your career. So you're going to have a boss and several bosses probably. And then I would recommend that you find a mentor and that you find a buddy. So I'll talk about all 3 of those people. The first one, your boss, they're assigned to you. That's easy. You're going to work with them in the way that works for their style, for your style. You'll form that relationship. It'll be natural. A mentor, on the other hand, so I'll start with them. Several companies, they might assign you a mentor, and that's fantastic. Take advantage of that, run with it, get to know that person and build a relationship. But just because maybe you're assigned one doesn't mean that has to be your only mentor. And if you work for a company like mine, nobody assigned me or appointed me to a mentor. So I found, and it took me 2 years because I was very careful. I sat back and I was very strategic. But I found a mentor at my company. And the way that I went about doing that is, so she's got rank in my company. She has a seat at some of the tables when it comes to personnel discussions. She has a seat that I don't have. I'm not in the room when they discuss some of those things. And so what I did is I made sure that she was familiar with my work. So I had been assigned to small roles on a couple projects that she was the lead for. And then once I had built up a little bit of trust with her and she had seen some of my work, she knew that I wasn't, that I was a real person and that, I had something to offer. I approached her in a formal capacity and I said, you know, hey, you are, and she's a woman. So I did approach her and I said, hey, you're a woman in our company. I really look up to your leadership style and I'd really love for you to be my mentor. And she said yes. And, you know, from there, I meet with her quarterly. We talk about my career aspirations. I keep her updated if I have, you know, big accomplishments, or sometimes just keep her updated on what it is that I'm working on, if I'm learning a new skill or, you know, can add something to my portfolio. And so she is the person that I go to talk long-term, big picture career decisions. And that I built that relationship with. That's very professional. And this is where a buddy comes in. I don't pick up the phone and call her when I have a problem. So for all she knows, nothing ever goes wrong at work. I know all the answers and I know how to handle every situation. She knows I don't. She knows that I just know who to call. But then I've got a couple buddies in my company, and, you know, these are people who are, you know, I'd say that they're probably one level above me, and they've got just a bit more experience, maybe a bit more exposure. And when I have something land on my desk that I need help with, or that I have questions about, or sometimes I get an email and I'm like, I don't know how to respond to this. Are they being snarky, or am I just taking it personally? You know, they're the people that I can go to and be really candid with, who also have enough experience that I trust their judgment, and they can guide me throughout a potential situation and help me from making maybe a mistake that they made. But a mentor is definitely someone that I would think about building a relationship with wherever you go, especially if you want to have a long-term career with where you land. You know, my goal is to retire from the current company that I work for, Phillips 66. And so, you know, I want to have a ton of people that I can turn to, that I trust, and that can vouch for me when I want to make a career move or something like that. So that's number 4. Number 5, and this one might be a little bit different. Maybe it's something that you've heard about before, but I did not get this advice when I was in my undergrad, and that's to know yourself and to know how to understand others. So I'm sure a lot of you have probably heard of like Myers-Briggs, or you know, these different types of personality assessments that you can take that help you learn more about yourself on some basic tangents, like whether you're introverted or extroverted, whether you're a thinker or a feeler, all incredibly valid, all incredibly important in the workplace, but it's very important that you know what you are and what your natural tendencies are. And then to that same end, I would say do a little bit of soul searching, for lack of a better term, so that maybe you can start to recognize the same or opposite tendencies in others. So for example, I know I am an extroverted person who makes decisions based on feeling. Obviously more than just a feeling. I don't just make decisions on a whim, but that's how my brain tends to think. So when I have a meeting with someone who's the total opposite of me, or if I'm pitching a project to them or pitching an idea, maybe they're more of a thinker and maybe they're more introverted, I'm going to approach them very differently in that meeting than I would approach someone who was also an extroverted, you know, feeler. Or, you know, when you think about it's the difference between bringing someone all the data, all the numbers, because some people need that, and then maybe a different person needs to hear about how you came up with the idea. What ideas did you have that you didn't decide on, that you didn't decide to go with? You know, what's your thought process behind the final idea that you're pitching? So people need different things to get behind different ideas and different projects to move forward. So it's really important, and it just all stems from building relationships with people, which you all know how to do. You're in PR. You know, you've been doing it your whole college career and before that. And so it's just about really knowing yourself and knowing others. It will get you far if you know how to cater to someone's preferences when you work with them. So we're coming into the home stretch. Number 6 is just to say yes. And that one seems really obvious, but that one made me nervous when I was in my undergrad. I thought, well, you know, how do say yes without stretching yourself too thin, or, not setting boundaries and things like that. So I will just say, as an intern or a new hire, you're going to have a chance to do and sample a lot of different things, and to build a ton of different skills. And I would say that if it comes across your desk, if you have the opportunity, say yes. Even if you do not have the skills, you don't know where to start, everything is Googleable, y'all. You can look it up online. You can look it up in a textbook for inspiration. I literally have a couple of my textbooks saved, like in my, I don't know if y'all can see it, in my library up here. My husband and I have like really influential textbooks from our coursework that we've saved, and I've referenced them before. So, say yes, even if you don't have the skills, call Pritch if you need help, call me if you need help, like we'll get you there, but you got to say yes first. You have to have the confidence to say, yes, I will figure it out. And one thing that I wish that I had definitely learned early is that you can be the yes person, because everyone loves the yes person. When they ask for help and you say yes, that is like the most valuable person on my team. But it is okay to say yes, but. You can say, yes, but I need some more training. Yes, but I'm going to need some guidance. Yes, but is there flexibility in that deadline? Can I have a bit more time? Something like that. So you can say yes, but you can change some of the conditions, or you can admit that maybe you need a little bit of help, because I would much rather know that you need a little bit of help, but you're willing to try it, than to say, no, don't really know how to do that, sorry. So I would definitely say yes to anything that comes across your desk. And then the last thing, and this one, I think it's important, especially this year, because it's just been a crazy year. This last one, number 7, is just know what makes you happy. And so I will say, coming out of your undergrad, it's going to feel really, really nice that on the weekends are yours. You don't have to study for anything. You don't have to be preparing. Maybe work will cross your mind a few times. Maybe you have to answer a few emails on the weekend. That's totally normal. But you got to know where the balance is. So I have observed, and I think a lot of us can attest to this, that in the US, and I think I've learned this after working with colleagues from different countries, but in the US, we have this, we've kind of lost this balance between, living to work and working to live. And sometimes being super busy is almost glorified as like, oh, the busier you are, the more important you are. But really, to me, that just shows me a lack of boundaries. If you're so busy that you don't even have time to like eat a dinner, most nights of the week, that's just insane. So I would definitely say it's all about a balance. So, early in my career, I said yes to everything. I gave it all that I had. And I definitely suggest that if you're a traditional student and maybe, before you have children and before you're married, you definitely take on things, build some of that rapport early in your career that you can handle a lot. But set a boundary to maintain a balance for yourself, because it is, once you graduate and get into your career, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So you have to take care of yourself along the way. You've got to recharge, and recharging looks different for every single person. And it may even change for you in the seasons. And so I'm not joking, y'all, when I say that I have a note on my iPhone it's titled Things That Make Me Happy. It sounds really, really cheesy, but it's helped me sometimes when I've had like kind of a stressful day, or when I have a free weekend and I think, I need to do something that just recharges me and makes me feel happy. And I encourage you to have a balance of things that are, you can do at any moment. Some things are going to be a little bit more of a special occasion. Some things try to keep a balance between things that are a little more expensive, like shopping or, buying certain items. And then maybe it's, for me, it's, taking my dog on, there's a trail, down the road from my house that we don't get to very often, but it's a 3-mile loop. And, it takes me a bit to walk it, but sometimes I have to invest in myself and just recharge that way. So I just encourage you to know those things about what makes you happy, because I know they're important while you're in school as well, but they become even more important when you start this marathon that will be your career. So that's kind of all I have for you. That's, some observations of what I learned from going through it myself and observing some others. So let's talk about it. I can open it up. We can chat a bit if you have questions or comments.
I have a question. It kind of goes back to the beginning of your presentation, but how did you balance the full-time job and grad school?
So that was really fun. I'll admit, I mentioned up front, so I am, this is my personal journey. I got married a few years ago, and my husband and I both really value education, and we made a pact that we were going to do it together. So that definitely helped, that my weekends were spent with another person who was also in the same boat. So we made it fun. On Saturday mornings, we knew Saturday and Sunday were school days, because let's be honest, my brain capacity after a full day of work and, trying to squeeze in a workout or, maybe a happy hour with some friends, my brain capacity at, 8 p.m. at night was not great. So I was trying to do the easy tasks that I could check off my list on the weekdays. And then on the weekends is when I would do a little bit more of my deeper research, deeper reading, when I would do my projects, things like that. Because there was a lot of analysis, which I am not, because my master's is in digital communications analytics. I am not a naturally analytically minded person. And so it was a huge challenge for me. So I really just had to get into a zone. I had to pull on the old tricks that I learned in college on how to really be very, very focused. But it was a lot of work on the weekends, if I'm being honest. That's how I managed it.
Did you have some sort of agreement with Phillips 66 that they would pay for grad school while you were working full time? And if so, how'd you go about that?
Yeah. So what was really interesting about my situation, so my company does have a tuition policy where they did pay for my master's degree. It was a certain amount per year. There's a cap basically per year. So it wasn't, 100% funded by them. I would say about 30% of it was funded by me out of pocket. And the deal goes that if they pay for your master's degree, you sign a contract that you're not going to leave the company for 2 years. I didn't plan on leaving anyway. I still don't. So that wasn't a problem for me. But what's really interesting is that because I'm working in an energy company, I'm surrounded by engineers and people with their business degree. And the communications folks of a company of 14,000 people, there's like this many of us in communications. And so when I went to them and I, had to get approval, I basically had to pitch myself. I had to pitch myself as a business investment to say, I want you to invest in my master's degree, and I had to lay out the reasons why. And I had so many people say, oh, so you're getting your MBA. And I said, no, that's not my passion, not what I necessarily want to pursue. I think that's great for people who want to get their MBA. It just wasn't the direction that I wanted to go. And so I had to pitch them why they needed me to have better knowledge of communications analytics. And so I was really grateful that I had a couple of years under my belt with them. So at the time I had 4.5 years with them. And so I could reference and say, I've got some years of service here. I've worked on these big projects. I think that I've proven I'm a worthy investment and that I'm loyal and I'm not going anywhere. So there was a lot of pitching myself as an investment, which I hadn't done before. So I learned a new skill there. But that's how I went about negotiating that.
Hi, Shelby. Just kind of bouncing off that question, how often is it that companies tend to help pay for grad school?
I would say, so this is in my experience, and of course, a lot of my network They are corporate, you know, in like corporate PR or corporate communications. A lot of major corporations have some sort of tuition assistance. You know, I'm only familiar with my company's policy, and it's fantastic. And I actually, it was something, one of the reasons why I looked at really committing full time back in 2014 is I knew that that was something that was available. So for me, it was one of the reasons why I chose this company, is because it showed me that they're wanting to invest in training and further education of their employees. It's pretty common though in corporate life, I would say. I can't comment on agency. I'm not quite sure, or nonprofit or anything like that. But for corporate communications, it's something that I think you'll find is relatively common.
Okay.
Of course,
thank
you have to maintain a certain GPA too. And they wanted to see my transcript, and they wanted to see on my report card every quarter. so it kind of felt like, even though I'm not living at home anymore, and I'm on my own, I kind of felt like, you know, mom and dad were checking in on me.
Yeah, send the first day school picture, everything.
That's right. What else?
I have a question. So a lot of your advice, it was really great. It was about kind of being a new hire, but do you have advice like before then, kind of like during your job search? Because I'm graduating in December, and that's kind of what I've been struggling with lately.
Yeah, I'm sure it's on your mind, is just, you know, what's the world gonna look like, and you know, what are my job prospects gonna look like? And so I'll tell you this, and I hope that this gives you some comfort, to Logan or anyone else who's graduating soon. Because I work in energy and it's a very fickle market, we are used to cyclical ups and downs of the market, meaning the job market too. And so I have a ton of colleagues, Logan, who graduated in 2008 when it wasn't a pandemic, but you know, the market crash, that wasn't much better. And they landed on their feet. I will say, you know, I know several of them who took jobs for the first couple of years of their career, who maybe it wasn't their dream job, maybe it wasn't their dream company, but they looked for something that they could get really good experience and just build some really good skills. And that way they could put it on a resume, they could talk about it in a job interview if they later decided, you know, a couple years down the road that they wanted to pursue a different path. And so that's fine too. So I would definitely say, you know, the tip about saying yes is probably going to be really big for anyone graduating just in any time of a market downturn. I would also say my number one tip is, as you get leads or as you connect with people at companies, and maybe you're sending your resume out and things like that, or getting an interview, there are opportunities to make yourself stand out. And I actually recently had this from actually a recent OU grad. I was super proud too. I was like, oh my gosh, like you guys are getting the good skills that you need to make an impression. But you know, he connected with me, or we got connected, and basically I said, you know, hey, send me your resume just so I have it, because you never know. You know, right now, of course, my company is not hiring a ton, but this is temporary and it's going to clear up. And so I know we're going to be hiring in the future. So I said, hey, send me your resume just so I have it on file, and that I can, you know, stay connected with you. And so he did. And when he attached his resume, in the body of the email, he basically said, you know, hey, Shelby, thanks so much. Here's my resume. And here's what my resume doesn't tell you. And he gave me like 3 succinct paragraphs about, you know, I mean, he had a couple of things that stood out that were unique that may or may not apply to some of you, but he was a first generation college graduate. He, you know, he has some characteristics about his personality that are listed, you know, at the top of his resume. And then he said, but let me tell you why I can back those up. You know, those aren't just resume buzzwords. And so that to me made a really big impression, and he definitely stood out by doing that. So I thought he did that really nicely, and I would definitely pass on that advice.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, Shelby. So I feel like in this industry, a lot of people move around a lot. So I'm just curious, like what keeps you at Phillips 66? Like what makes you want to stay there even into retirement?
Yeah. So that's a super easy answer for me, and it's the people. I don't know how my company does it. I don't know how we just recruit awesome people. But even on like my worst days, because any day of, or, any job that you have is going to be, you're going to have a bad day, let's be honest. Whether you get your dream job and, you're a nonprofit, or whether you're working a job that you took that it is what it is, it'll get by for a while, you're going to have bad days. And, it's just about the people. When I can pick up the phone and call someone and be like, oh, I had a really crummy day. And they're like, tell me about it. Like, let's hear it. There's something so different too between, friends that you have outside of work, but then work friends. When you can say, oh, I had a conversation with, I'm just going to say Becky. And they can say, oh, Becky. And they know who I'm talking about, and things like that. So I would definitely say that the people are why I stick around. And then the second reason is that my company, we're an energy company. We're pretty traditional. And at first you might think, I don't know if I want to work for a company that's called traditional. But my company, Phillips 66, time and time again has proven to me that we constantly strive to evolve. Even in we rolled out 4 pillars, I guess you call them, of what makes our company great, and how we work with each other. It's kind of like our credo, how we work with each other. And they're super simple, but seek different perspectives, work for the greater good, build trust, and achieve excellence. So to me, the fact that we are in our cultural credo saying that you're going to build trust with each other and you're going to seek perspectives different than your own, that landed on me, and I was like, wow, okay. So, we're finally naming what's amazing about our culture. And so that's why I stay, that's why I haven't looked over the fence on, wanting to see if the grass is greener. It's the people. So if you find a place like that with awesome people that are like-minded, but that also push you to be better and think differently, I think, that's a place that we all want to retire from, I think.
Thank you.
Shelby, what's your favorite memory from Gaylord or OU and when you were in PRSSA?
Okay, let's see. Favorite memory. So, definitely the first memory that jumped out at me is it's not a super, it doesn't have a professional tie to it, but I remember sitting in the Lindsay Nasp agency. I don't know if y'all still have them. We had these crazy chairs that were just like a ball that you sit on, super colorful. And we basically, there was a situation where there was a car backfire and someone called it in as an active shooter. And I was in the Lindsay Nasp agency at the time. And so we didn't know what was going on. They just told us to shelter in place. So we closed the glass doors and we're hunkered down. We've got a whiteboard that someone has written do not erase. And it's got all these crazy campaign ideas and doodles on it. And it was just me and a couple other members of Lindsay Nasp, and we were in there for it wasn't even that long, but that was one of my most fond memories is it's just being what's going on? This was crazy. So that was definitely unrelated to PRSSA, but definitely it was a lot of, I can say it now, it was fun. I think some of my favorite memories of PRSSA and Gaylord, I think were my summer classes. So I took a couple, one of them was with Pritch. It was actually media training. It was so painful to watch a recorded video of yourself giving an interview and then watching it back and watching yourself the beads of sweat pooling as you're realizing that it's a fake interview, but still it feels like it's the most important thing in the world. Those summer classes to me, they were just so laid back and they were a ton of fun. And I actually I use a lot, when I was in my media relations role, I used a ton of what I learned in that class I've since been media trained again, and I had to do the same exercise where they videotape you and then you watch it and you critique it. And so it kind of warmed me up for what was to come. But those are some of my favorite memories.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, do you have any like upper level division Gaylord electives that you recommend taking?
Oh, I got to think through what I took. I will say one of the, I don't know if it still has a reputation, but like my toughest class that I took, and it was a requirement, was PR research. I use that a lot. So no, I don't use SPSS. And no, I don't use all of these other tools that I think I had to learn. But the basis of what I learned in that class is, I think it's my most used coursework, aside from, actual like your campaigns class or your capstone class, things like that. And then the practical knowledge that you learn from like Lindsay Nasp and anywhere that you're actually applying your creativity and putting things and executing them. PR research was like, I was shocked about how much I really use from that class, because a lot of times you're asked to, ground your ideas in data or in research, and even knowing how to read and interpret someone else's research is super important. So although I hated it, I loved it. It was a love-hate relationship with that class.
I have a question kind of going back to what you said earlier about taking advice and learning from your mistakes. What advice do you have for, I don't know, I guess like coming from my experience, I'm very sensitive. And so I understand that the advice is supposed to make me, a better PR practitioner. But what advice do you have for jumping back from those mistakes that you might make in your first internship or job?
Yeah. So I would definitely say, knowing already that just, the fact that you are an intern or that you are a new hire, no one is expecting you to be perfect. You obviously you're going to get hired because you're incredible and you've got this, amazing catalog of things that you've done in your time in Gaylord. But no one's expecting you to be perfect. No one started out perfect. And so when they give you that feedback, I know, because I'm like you, I'm sensitive. I don't like hearing that anyone is anything but pleased with the work that I've done or the way I handled myself. But it feels very personal, but it's not personal. That's the thing. When they give you that feedback, kind of like I said earlier, they wouldn't give you the feedback if they didn't care. But chances are they're invested in you, they're invested in your success. And so when they give their feedback to you, it's because they believe in your future and they just want you to avoid that. And so, like I said, I had a couple of blind spots pointed out to me early in my career. And, people could have easily let me carry on and, just basically back myself into a wall or, get into a situation where I'm totally blindsided when my project is killed and I don't understand why. So you have to remember that in the moment when you're getting the feedback, I get it. It's super painful. Bite your lip, cry in your car on the way home. But you can handle 5 minutes of an uncomfortable conversation, knowing that it's going to benefit, your career exponentially. So I know it's tough.
Thank you.
I have another just throwback question for you.
Yeah.
What was the most important thing that you learned either in your role as president or on your time on the PRSSA executive board at OU?
Yeah. I think, so a couple of things come to mind. The first was just how to be an organized person. I know that's not like a PR skill, but just how to, keep a balance, how to keep organized, how to know how to manage a lot of moving parts. So, when I was president, I'm also balancing, classes. I'm also balancing, Greek life. I'm balancing, just being a daughter and a girlfriend at the time, things like that. So I had a lot of different things in my life that I was needing to balance that needed my attention. And so definitely learning how to do that and striving to do all of them well. That was a skill that I had to hone and that I had to learn. And of course I stumbled along the way. And then I would definitely say learning how to interact with people. I would say with PRSSA especially, learning how to interact with people who were, different than me, or who had, different personality characteristics, or who wanted to go into different areas of PR, just people who have a totally different view of the world than I have. That was a really good experience on, as president of PRSSA is, how do you keep your network happy and continue to provide value for them when maybe that wasn't, maybe you didn't have as much value for that speaker, but 90% of your network did. So it's all, I learned a lot about that when I was, during my time when I was president of PRSSA.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions? Well, Shelby, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us tonight, and we appreciate it. I know
Of course. Thank y'all so much for having me, and just good luck, y'all, with the ice and with graduation that's coming up. But
Thank
Thanks
you
so much.
of course, I'll be sending you all very positive vibes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shelby. Good luck.
Of course. Thank you. Yes, I need it too.
Keep us posted on the baby, will you?
I will. She's due in March, so I'll send some
Woohoo.
pictures.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bye, thank you.